Hello, this is Jonathan Parker. The title of this video is What is the Soul? Trying to discover what the soul is can be a bit of a challenge since the soul isn't physical. Therefore, you can't detect it or measure it with a physical instrument. And so this causes a lot of people to discount the existence of the soul. I heard Stan Lee, the author of many Marvel superhero characters, interviewed on TV years ago by Larry King, who asked him if he was afraid of death. And he said, well, no, he wasn't. But what did disturb him was the thought that when he died, there would be nothing for eternity. And this exchange points out the dilemma that has perplexed people for millennia. Not only are there many questions about life after death, but also about who and what we are. Is it true there is nothing to look forward to? Well, years ago, I was asking the same questions myself, and I found very little reassuring answers in trying to research the subject. So I decided I'm going to dedicate myself to the pursuit of answers to understand what the soul is. And this became the sole topic of my inner searching for years. I would meditate several hours a day, all in a quest to discover all I could find out about the soul. And in the process and through direct experience, I came to realize a great deal about the non-physical realms and what our true nature actually is. Isn't that remarkable? There's so much confusion about the soul. Do you have a soul? What is the soul? Where did it come from? Where is it leading you? And I still remember thinking, if I have a soul, it is perhaps the most important topic to come to understand. And reading all I could find about what the soul is made me realize that many who are writing about it were actually speculating and philosophizing about it rather than describing their direct experiences with it. So, the meditative practice I started was holding an intention on discovering all I could about what the soul is, asking it to reveal itself to me. And for several weeks, meditating with those goals in mind, I kept coming up empty handed. I saw nothing, felt nothing, heard nothing. But I continued doing that for hours every day. And then one day, while I was meditating and requesting the soul to emerge, I began to feel a comforting presence embracing me. It's a little bit hard to describe the sensation, but it was reassuring, accepting, healing, comforting, and very deeply peaceful. And there was also something like a warm vibration or a resonance that seemed to engulf me. And there seemed to be an intelligence awaiting for me to call to it. Now, aiding me in my soul exploration were hundreds of people that I was doing intuitive and energy healing sessions with to bring their soul to the surface. And what I discovered is that most people can actually feel what I'm describing when I assist them this way, right over the phone. So over time, I discovered a great deal about non-physical realms and specifically about the nature of the soul, including what the soul is. And there are so many wonderful revelations that your quest for your soul can teach you. It can change your understanding about your life purpose and your destiny. Now, as you may already know, I had my first book published in 2010. It was titled The Soul Solution, and it covers many ways that the soul can assist you on your spiritual evolutionary journey. There are a number of questions that people have asked me about their soul, and they were not addressed in that book. So I'm going to cover some of them now. So here's a partial list of what I'm going to cover as I continue in this video. What is the soul? Can your soul be damaged or destroyed? Does every living thing have a soul? And what is the difference between the soul and spirit. And what is the mission of the soul? Can the soul evolve? And if so, how? First of all, what is the soul? Well, the soul is also often called your true self, or even sometimes your higher self. It is actually who and what you are beneath the surface of your physical senses. And it contains all your memories from your entire existence, including all of your past lives. It is also one with all existence, with the source. And because of this, it's also sometimes referred to as your enlightened self, because it already has the highest realizations of divine truth. And it is your key to integrating those realizations into your everyday life. The soul is composed of light and energy, and the underlying qualities are rooted in unconditional love. And that's why love is often said to be the path to enlightenment. The deeper you realize this high form of love, the closer you come to understanding all life and how to evolve. Now, the next question that comes up is, where is the soul in your body? When I see a soul, it usually has a human-shaped form, and I refer to this as your soul body. And most of the souls that I've seen thousands, appear much like a large angel radiating love and light. And it also appears much larger than your physical body. So therefore, it's really more accurate to say your physical body is within your soul rather than your soul in your physical body. Now, on the other hand, some would say the soul's in the center of your head. Some say it's in your heart center, in the center of your chest. And those are actually just two locations where you can more easily access the soul, because you can access it anywhere you put your attention, because it's really all through your whole body. In fact, I remember one time thinking, I wonder if I could connect with my soul through my big toe. So I closed my eyes, I meditated, I tuned in my big toe, and there, sure enough, I was able to connect with the soul. But it is most easily connected with through your heart center, because by focusing there, you are much more easily able to bypass the intrusions of your analytical mind. And in fact, because many people have constant mental chatter and their minds are always thinking about something, I recommend putting a hand over the center of your chest, putting your attention there. And that helps you to disengage your analytical mind and move you into the peacefulness of the heart. So try it next time you're challenged with quieting your mind. And it might take a little practice, but in time, you're going to find that your thoughts are slowing down and there's a calmness that comes over you. Next, I want to answer, what is the soul of a person? Each soul is a unique expression of the spirit that underlies and encompasses everything in existence. Because the soul is composed of the essence that emanates from the source of all, it is your most valuable resource, and it provides you with the underlying impulses that drive all of your spiritual quests and evolution. The soul is what frees you from the confines of the ego, fear-driven, controlling, analytical mind. And that's actually what most people think they are. But that's actually a false self. That's an ego self. It's a personality construct. And actually, all the ideas about who and what you are derive from speculations and projections of the mind. And they trick you into believing that's who you are. This is the process of identification. And that is what the limited mind creates. So then who are you really? Well, Nearly everyone defines him or herself as an identity with certain qualities and characteristics. But these are actually self-created personality elements that form from desires and conclusions you reach from past observations and direct experiences. And they distill down to form your overall personality, which most people give labels, such as a teacher, a bricklayer, a parent, a child, a lawyer, a truck driver, a gardener, a minister, and on and on. But those labels actually only describe very limited aspects of your experiences. There is much more to you than any label. And in addition, none of the labels fully encompass the soul and its nature. You see, the soul is composed of light and unconditional love, but it has qualities like curiosity, gentleness, humility, peacefulness, fulfillment, happiness, joyfulness. And when you combine these traits, they lead you to lasting happiness and contentment. So I summarize the soul's nature as essential goodness because it encompasses all that you admire in the saints and to which you aspire to evolve to spiritually. The more you form connections with the soul, the more these qualities express through your personality. Because of the refined qualities that make up the soul, when your thoughts and actions are contrary to the soul, you violate your integrity and you automatically generate negative forces, usually thought of as karma. When you violate your integrity with your soul, you are out of alignment with your essential goodness, and you set creative and attractive forces in motion that cause the conditions of your life which attempt to balance or compensate for your integrity violations. And that is what drives negative karma. There are causes behind every experience you have, and underlying those causes are your deepest unconscious beliefs and conclusions. You know, all of your beliefs form from conclusions. You come to conclusions about just about everything. And your conclusions are what you believe to be true, but they're actually distorted perceptions from truth. And they're certainly distortions from what the soul is. Now, can the soul be damaged? Can it be destroyed? Sometimes people refer to lost souls or poor souls, and these carry negative connotations. But what they actually are ego fears. And the strongest ego fear that obstructs people from becoming liberated and enlightened is a fear of being destroyed or annihilated. But that's only the ego. You see, the ego's finite. It had a beginning and it knows it's going to have an end, and it's terrorized by that concept. But the soul cannot die. It cannot be damaged or be destroyed. In fact, the fact that you exist means that your soul will continue to exist. And even if the soul were somehow fractured by a force, it would instantly reassemble. So the soul not only doesn't fear anything, it is incapable of fearing anything. And those who fear soul traps and soul attacks are actually describing ego personality identities. And those are sometimes confused with the soul. But the actual soul's frequencies are above all form, and therefore it is invincible and immortal. From the Indian sacred text called the Bhagavad Gita, it says, the soul is never touched. It is immutable, all pervading, calm, unshakable, and its existence is eternal. Now, what about lost souls? Well, the soul actually is not lost, and it cannot be lost. The soul is one with source and spirit, as is everything in existence below the perceived form. The soul is intelligent. It is wise. It is spiritually enlightened. And that's why it's also called your higher self. But a lot of people are unaware of their soul. Some are in denial that they have a soul. But that's only indicative of their being out of touch with it. You see, most people are so absorbed with their senses, with their analytical mind, with their goals, their drive for success, their drive to accumulate and have more things, and all the daily distractions. So they've lost touch with their soul. I've even heard some people say that not every person has a soul. And I am open minded enough to consider this as a possibility. I've never personally encountered a person without a soul in doing more than 50,000 private sessions. I've seen a lot of things that you probably don't even imagine. And I've speculated maybe if a person is cloned, that might be a possible exception. Maybe clones don't have souls. And it might also be likely true for some form of artificial intelligence or like a robot that has artificial intelligence, and only time is going to tell. I've had some people ask me if psychopaths are soulless. From my experience, I've not found this to be true. It's just that some are so absorbed in their mental construct, they are disconnected from their soul. And that lies below all the distractions of the mind and the senses. I've had some people tell me they didn't believe they had a soul because they were out of touch with it. And so therefore they didn't want to work with me anymore. Well, not being in touch with it doesn't mean that you don't have a soul. The sense of not having a soul sometimes happens when people have been traumatized or terrorized or abused. Those some people who've been emotionally wounded, they create these defense mechanisms to shield themselves from their pain. So they've cut themselves off from their feelings because they've been emotionally hurt. So they put up shielding, armoring, all in their energy field to protect themselves. There's a problem with that, however. The big problem with this approach is that whatever walls and armor is put up to keep out perceived dangers also keeps out the very experiences a person craves, such as acceptance, love, trust, happiness, fulfillment, joyfulness. So a major aspect of their healing must include reconnecting with their soul, because these people can appear so disconnected from themselves, they can seem to be without a soul. And in that case, they can sometimes do very cruel things. They can do very negative things, and they may think they're getting away with it, but they're just locking into a particular vibration, a particular frequency of experiences that will perpetuate until they come to the point where they wake up and they realize they can break free. A lot of these people are not even grounded, and some of them are not even in their bodies or not fully in their bodies. That might seem like an odd concept to you if you are not familiar with it. But people who appear spacey, forgetful, shy, withdrawn, confused, or like they're not all there, this means that they're probably not fully in their body. So there's another aspect of defense that some who've been traumatized employed, and that's referred to as energy fragmentation. And in these cases, the person appears to be spacey and not fully present. And sometimes the solution is referred to as soul retrieval, but it isn't really the soul that is fragmented. It's an aspect of the personality and the identities. And in these cases, the soul is actually the cure. By connecting deeply with the soul, the fear melts, the person regenerates, the energy fragments return, and the person reconnects with light. If the person remains disconnected from their soul over time, they can descend into some very dark places of futility and depression, barely alive and yet not dead. People in this condition will sometimes resort to participating in unconventional practices, should I say, and even very painful practices. And these measures can then become more addictive, requiring more of those kind of experiences for the person to feel alive. The soul solution is to invite the soul to merge into the pain. And over time, it will replace all the disconnections, all the negative emotions, and replace them with a sense of being fully present and alive. Now, what's the difference between soul and spirit? Answering this question requires clarifying distinctions between souls and spirit. Spirit is the underlying essence and energy of everything in existence, whereas souls are unique, individualized expressions of spirit. And depending on the level of evolution, determines whether the spirit within individuals is sufficiently developed to have individuality. The more evolved, the more there is unique individuality of the soul. So, for instance, plants and rocks have an underlying spirit essence, but very little individuality. Animals have more individuality, and clairvoyants can confirm that they have spirit bodies, which in some cases has developed unique soul individuality. This is especially true of animals that are pets, where their owners love them and interact with them often. Because there is spirit essence in everything, it's quite possible to develop intuitional skills to read the energy, the history, the perceptions of everything, including animals and even inanimate objects. This is called psychometry. And most people attempting to do this think they're making it all up because their analytical mind intrudes with all these perceptions and questions and doubts. In fact, that when I taught classes for over 30 years on developing clairvoyance and how to read energy, that was the one main thing that would come up in the early classes. People would say, I feel like I'm making this up. But with training and practice, this can be circumvented and valuable insights can be gained. And you can practice doing this by entering a relaxed state, putting your attention on whatever it is you want to attune to, project unconditional love and acceptance toward the object that you're focused on, and then allow yourself to receive impressions or ask questions and then receive responses. Of course, like developing any skill in the beginning, you're going to be uncertain of your experiences. But over time, you can refine this ability and can get quite good at it. But I will say this, it takes a lot of practice, probably a lot more practice than most people are willing to put in. And most people who are good at it have been practicing for years. Next question is, what is the mission of the soul? One of the most common questions people ask is what their soul mission in life is. A lot of people feel they have a calling to a particular career path, like an artist or a doctor, a teacher, a biologist, a bricklayer, carpenter, or something. The reason a person feels drawn to specific career paths is often because they've had one or more lifetimes in that field. So if you've had several lifetimes devoted to a particular career interest, you'll find it seems to come naturally and easily for you in your current life. So, for instance, you might have been involved in business, a particular type of business, or you might have been a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, and you find an interest in those things again in this life, and on and on. Now, the question becomes, if I'm drawn to a particular interest, does that mean that it's my soul's purpose? The answer is both yes and no. It's yes, because the area you devote yourself to makes your heart sing. You love it. You have a passion for it, a fulfillment, and your soul naturally attracts you to that area to continue evolving. The soul has a core impulse to discover, unfold, expand, develop. You might even say it has a curiosity. And these characteristics can express through many choices. So the specific activities are the means to evolve, and you are free to make choices in how you do that. Now, with that in mind, there are two aspects to your evolution. Understanding how the soul works through your career or your interest is tied to the two aspects of your evolution. Now, one way that you evolve is through the progressive realization of who and what you are. And this means you have a greater realization of your soul. As the realization level of your consciousness rises, you shed the illusions and conceptualizations and attachments of the personality. So your awareness gradually expands to higher and higher levels, and you hit a level where you feel at one with all creation, one with all there is. And when you continue, the continuous expansion of consciousness will eventually lead you to the still point of consciousness. And that is the core source beyond all conceptualization. This is referred to as non duality awareness. And that's as far as that type of expansion of awareness can go. And I refer to this process as horizontal enlightenment because it's a continuous process of expansion into vastness, non-attachment, the non-duality. However, there is a second aspect of your evolution, and that is vertical enlightenment. And that includes your continuous participation in discoveries of the many forms of manifestation in all dimensions. And this process can never be ending. It continuously evolves and reaches higher levels of understanding and higher expressions of love and service. Now, I need to point out, I have not found very many who are familiar with this aspect of evolution. The higher realization explanations of esoteric spiritual paths generally focus on attaining non dual awareness as ultimate enlightenment. And I agree, non duality is beyond all conceptualizations, and it is as far as your realizations can expand. And that is certainly a choice that can be made, but not the only choice. So here's a way of looking at this process. As you observe all creation, you will conclude that everything is on a transformational journey of becoming something else. In other words, everything is evolving. And by observation alone, you can conclude there's an underlying drive for the expansion of experiences. Now, considering there are many dimensions, each with infinite subdivisions, there are opportunities for infinite experiences. As your consciousness rises, you interact with more evolved beings, eventually reaching levels where the ego disappears and all interactions are love-based. Now, can you imagine living in societies where everyone is peaceful, kind, loving, supportive, generous, serving, and helpful? Can you imagine what creative projects and adventures you can explore in cultures such as those? This model of evolution has more appeal today because it's beyond simply being suspended in non-dual awareness. And I think it makes a lot of sense to most people who are wanting experiences without incurring the type of negativity that most people experience. So once again, returning to observation of creation, those who choose to melt or dissolve into nirvana of non-duality, they will discover there's an impulse once again cycling into form, for that is the very nature of existence. Now, the next big question is, how do you evolve? Since the soul is already horizontally evolved or enlightened, and your mission each lifetime is to more deeply discover enlightened awareness by eliminating the limiting beliefs and ego identities that obscure it. The only obstacle is the fear-driven ego analytical mind. That's the only obstacle. The identities that the mind holds are composed of many deeply embedded beliefs, and they trick you into thinking you are those limited identities. And what this means is your apparent evolution is actually a discovery process that reveals deeper truths, progressively going through the layers of limiting beliefs and clearing them. And clearing them is actually fairly easy once you have identified the specific distortions and limiting beliefs or illusions, if you prefer to call them that. But that requires being a detective to find what's holding those limitations in place. And this is often a time consuming process. It does require relentless dedication, but the rewards are significant. You'll become happier and more liberated from your old painful experiences. The more you clear your mental obstacles, the more the soul is automatically revealed with all of its characteristics that bring fulfillment and a feeling of being complete. No matter what the question or problem, the solution lies in identifying the underlying cause and systematically letting go of the subtle energy patterns that hold the limiting beliefs. And in a spiritual context, this is called surrender. Surrender is the secret to letting go. And I have an audio program by that name on my website, and it will guide you through that process. The secret of letting go. Here's the key. Your heart is the doorway to discovering what the soul is and learning to dive into the heart center. And it provides the easiest and the most direct access to the essence of the soul. Now, there are many ways to go about the process. But the more specific and targeted the process, the faster you're going to evolve. So I'm going to list some practices that accelerate you on discovering what your soul is. The first, of course, is meditation. And there are two basic forms. One is active, one is passive. The passive form is the slowest process, but it can certainly help give you a lot of clarity. Now, by passive, I mean you quiet your mind, you become a neutral observer, not engaging with whatever comes up. And over time, this withholds energy from re engaging you or triggering you. Now, eventually, I suppose if you sat in a transcendent state long enough, you would eventually dissolve all of the ego structures. And this is actually what's happened with a lot of people that spontaneously seem to wake up and become enlightened. They've been working on it for a lifetime, in many cases, many lifetimes. And in this lifetime, it seems to happen automatically, sometimes without them even trying. And you can wonder in your mind, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't that happen to me? Well, maybe you haven't spent quite as many lifetimes in those pursuits that they have. But you can accelerate this process way beyond going through all of these lifetimes. A faster meditative practice is proactively going after the thoughts and feelings that trigger you and rob you of inner peace. And once again, there are many ways of doing it. The simplest suggestion I could give you, I have a what's called a 14-day quick self-clearing program. 14-day quick self-clearing program. You'll find it on my website. You'll get a little something to do every day for 14 days. The second practice after meditation to help you discover your soul makes use of affirmation. And you can include both audible and subliminal affirmation programs. They're excellent reinforcement to clearing and establishing strong, empowering beliefs. For deep soul healing, I recommend my program called Soul Merge. That's a program that brings the soul to the surface and it dissolves what the ego has created and been holding on to. This program is composed of what I call prayerful intentions. They're similar to affirmations, but they're done in a meditative state, connecting with the soul in a very deeply sincere and felt way. Because your soul is your most powerful healing and transformational tool. The third practice to help you discover your soul is by analyzing your dreams. Accessing and interpreting your dreams can give you key insights into your blocks and obstacles. Even nightmares are really just your negative fixations in the subconscious coming to the surface in symbolic form. So don't be dismayed if you have negative dreams. That's your mind pushing forward the negative programming and fixations that are there so you can deal with them. So what I suggest then is you either write down some notes about your dreams as soon as you wake up or use a recorder to briefly describe your dreams. If you don't do this as soon as you wake up, you're going to find your memories start fading away very quickly. Usually within 10 minutes, they're gone. The fourth practice to help you discover your soul is discovering and clearing core beliefs. Your core beliefs are your unconscious belief programs that were usually created through past trauma, mistreatment, deep emotional wounds, or through brainwashing, religious or political programming. These are programs that can even carry over from lifetime to lifetime, and they're often very deeply embedded. And unless you discover how to clear them and find out what they are, they're going to follow you for your whole life and carry over. to the other lives as you're going to live in the future. So once again, my Secret of Letting Go program is helpful for this. A fifth practice, and this one is really powerful to help you discover the soul, is energy healing. Now, there's a lot of forms of energy healing. So some people will include Reiki and prana healing, quantum healing, psychic healing, even hypnotherapy. And some include other things like craniosacral therapy and acupuncture and any kind of laying on of hands or other hands-on modalities. I have a program called Energy Self-Mastery that goes into a great deal of instructions and practices for clearing and elevating your consciousness. That program was actually derived from the first several classes that I taught. When I was teaching energy self-mastery and teaching uh, subtle energy healing in what I called the School of Energy Self-Healing and Enlightenment, that was an 8-week program taken over 2 years. It included a lot of practice and a lot of techniques and training that really are not available anywhere else. And I put a lot of them in the Energy Self-Mastery program. It's a much larger program, and it will keep you busy for quite a while. When you learn to integrate the soul, you become more clearly perceptive. There's a sense of being free and aware, awake, energized, open-hearted, non-judgmental, and unconditionally loving. And you automatically live in the present moment without even trying to do so. And if you've been trying to live in the now, you know it's pretty difficult to try to keep your mind focused all the time, to keep you in the now. You just can't do it for very long. But once you go through this clearing process, you'll be there automatically without effort. It becomes effort. In fact, all the positive characteristics become automatic. And discovering merging with the soul is the path of your evolution. And at each step along the way, you're going to feel more awake and more alive. The integration of your soul is what you are seeking, whether you're aware of it or not. The soul is what brings the healing. It brings peace. It brings love. It brings harmony to your life. The soul is the key to all your transformation and all your healing. And this is the real purpose of your life. And it is what describes your path. The only question is how long this process will take. And this is a matter of your free will choices. You can do nothing and you will continue much the same way your life has been, or you can take active role in your evolutionary life journey. And you can bypass many future lives of living in limitations of ego-dominated societies. Yes, at times the journey can be lonely and seemingly slow, or even painful at times. I've often had people ask, is this going to go on forever? Will it ever end? And I can assure you, it will not go on forever. The more you dedicate yourself and have deep commitment and dedication, persistence, you will succeed. Even if you aren't having the experiences now that you want and hope for. You see, you are dealing with a certain amount of limiting programming, which as you remove the subtle energy causing them, causes your life to get easier and more positive. Your dedication to evolving spiritually frees you more and more the higher your consciousness rises. Your consciousness will rise proportional to the degree that you apply yourself and clear all of the assumptions and the limiting beliefs. I can tell you this, most of the methods are simple. They're not complicated. They aren't even difficult. The difficult part of it is they require persistence, patience, dedication, and a lot of practice to never give up, even when you hit plateaus, when you seem to be not making any progress. Let me remind you at this point, mastery is well worth all the inconveniences necessary to attain it. This is Jonathan Park. I'll join you on the next video.